Uh, and if each person would say their name and their appointment. Nancy?
Nancy Nelson, Historical Commission appointee, reporting from New Hampshire.
Yeah. Sarah? Hey,
But I am here.
Sarah Grimwood, appointee of the Natural Resources Commission.
thank you. Paul?
Paul Bohm, appointee of the Recreation Commission.
Charles?
Charles Phillips, appointee of Concord Housing Authority.
Burton? Can't hear you.
Burton Flint Planning Board designee.
Thank you. Tom?
I'm current select board appointee.
John?
John Kratzley, Select Board appointee.
And Linda Escobedo, a visitor from our select board. Hello, Linda, behind that screen. Well, welcome, Diane Proctor, appointed from the select board. Our first task tonight is to review and approve the MOUs. And Heather, it's wonderful to have you still with us. I wonder if you would be willing to do something. I know you're the host of this, but I wonder if you'd be willing to turn off your screen and your sound for just a minute. I mean, just close yourself off and do this to your ears for a second.
That's subtle.
I don't know how else to do it because I don't have everybody's email addresses. So I think we need to give Heather a present, guys. So I was just thinking if we each pitched in, what do you think? $10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
$10 or so. I could go to that wonderful little children's place down here in Concord Center and buy a gift certificate for the baby and as a thank you for all that she's done. Would that make sense to everybody?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Great.
Sounds great.
Yes. Okay. Well, I will go and get that tomorrow, and that's terrific. Now I have to get Heather back. Heather, come back. I don't know how to do that.
Blew it.
Congrats, Diane.
What?
We have to send you something.
Oh, that's all right. Oh yeah. 57 Sudbury Road, and in Concord. But I just thought it would be, it's just very, I just thought it's an important thing to do. She's been remarkable. Now, let's see, is there a way to do this? I know, I'll raise my hand and maybe she'll come back. Come back. No,
We could all raise our hand.
why don't we all do that at once? Ready? 1, 2, 3, raise hands. I guess they're back.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I'm assuming the
she
raise
is.
hand means come
Hi,
back.
Heather, glad to have you back. Okay, here we go. So that the MOUs, and then next will be the community preservation plan updates, then the project status reports, and then committee membership and officer elections. And so that's terrific. Thank you. Let's you can take that down now if you want to.
Okay.
Because the MOUs will probably have to do some screen sharing again anyway. So where are we on the MOUs?
So the last time we discussed them, the only comment that everyone had was in the grant agreements to add a condition about requiring the annual project status reports. So I have added that to all of the grant agreements.
Thank you.
I can share my screen and maybe find it, and then I will share my screen. So
And
for example, it's condition number 10 in all of the grant agreements. And I just copied and pasted what we have in the MOUs as that condition as well.
Thank you. Because that is an important thing. Sarah.
I think it's the MOUs where Heather, your emails all the way through it, or to contact. So I wondered if that needs to be updated to another one, or will it just automatically get forwarded to the new person?
That's actually a good idea because I did change all that in the preservation plan. I will just put the senior planner or planning division. So I will change that in all of them.
Okay, and I think your email's in there somewhere as well. Oh yeah, I see it under project updates.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I will fix that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, for that detail.
Mhm.
Good.
Nancy.
that I have one comment on, it's just a comment, not for any decision or discussion right now, but I just wanted to point out that there's overlap between the first and second grant for the Right Tavern, and I think everybody knows that, and it totals about $100,000. And I'm wondering if there is a breakdown of costs associated with item 1 to 12 in the second grant. I'm sorry I missed the last two meetings, so I can take this offline if that's better, if there's an answer.
Now, if somebody else could answer that, I'm going to see if I can find that one sheet for a second. So talk among yourselves.
Okay, or I could call you later, but there is $100,000 is a significant potential overlap, and I'll be interested to know how the committee wants to sort that out. As I sign as treasurer.
Could you explain the overlap? What it means?
Yeah, in the current, the second allocation, items 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and 12 are either partly, are funded for an amount that totals up to $100,000. They were also in the first grant. But I don't know in the second grant, how much money, is there money above what was in the first grant in those categories that I should be aware of? Because they could start now spending out of the second grant. And there's overlap. So I don't know if the committee wants to collapse those two. I don't know if they can, but it might be a little challenging to sort that out on my own. So looking for some guidance down the road.
How important is it to make that distinction, Nancy, do you think? And I found my piece of paper. I knew I had it. It was just a matter of finding the right pile.
Well,
So, yep.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it could be that the balance of expenditures changes among 12 items a lot. And do we care? Do we not care? Should we care? This is a legal document, right?
Well,
Isn't it a binding? It's a binding document that town meeting approved, but I don't know that there were ever any dollar amounts assigned to any of these 12 categories.
So maybe a question for Heather, in terms of their reimbursement applications, won't they have to itemize?
Yeah, I would think.
From each, yeah, and then it'll get reviewed and approved.
Right, yeah, they would have, in their reimbursement request, they would have to itemize out and list out each specific item and how much they spent on it. And here's the invoice from the company for that work. And here is the canceled check showing that we paid for that work already. In terms of like assigning a specific amount to each item, we've never done that in the past for projects. So that would be something new.
does that address your question, Nancy? I think it's, we know what the aggregate or the bigger concerns are. And then I just think it's a matter.
I would actually, if that's I don't know if it's a legal question or not, but we had dollar amounts in the first grant that were associated with those categories that I mentioned. I should put this in a memo. But for instance, the supporting of the ridge beam in the attic was allocated in the first grant $15,000. It's also a line item in the second grant. And and what if it's $100,000 and that's half the grant, or approaching a major portion of the grant? I think at one point Rosalind said she expected the engineer's cost to be, I don't remember, she said 60 or 90, frankly, but it was a big chunk. So it's that kind of thing that I don't know. Is it just for whatever of the 12 items? That's what I want.
That's generally how it is as long as they submit a reimbursement request and it falls within one of these 12 items, it's a reimbursable expense. And that's generally how we've reimbursed other projects.
Yeah, I know we've said there was some flexibility on that. I just wonder if there's limits. I mean, at some point, they run out of money and they don't do the work that they were hoping to get done or something. I mean, that's the worst case, that the money runs real short.
Well, I think,
So
I think the
I'll
biggest concern, Nancy, might be an expenditure that either falls into none of the 12 categories or seems to exceed the aggregate of any one of the categories from the first grant to the second grant. And the collapsing of those together, you know, if it then, you know, dramatically exceeds those.
So it's
Yeah.
it's just pretty much free floating among 12 categories
I would say that's probably the way they
and
counting.
of both grants. So I would love some language on that. I really think it could be confusing, but we'll see. And I'll try to pose the questions better.
Well, it may be one of those things that we cross the bridge when we come to it. You know, I mean,
Maybe, yeah.
It doesn't emerge as ultimately as a problem at all. Otherwise, it might
Yeah,
be
that would
be problematic. And I think maybe, you know, we have time on that one, thank heavens, to try to see.
Yeah. that might be. Okay,
Yeah,
'cause-
like
well, I'll try
in
to.
the past, if there's ever a question on a reimbursement request that myself and the treasurer don't feel comfortable with, we can always bring it to the whole committee at a meeting.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that can be when a
Yeah,
reimbursement
there you go.
request comes in, if you have questions about it, you don't feel comfortable signing off on it, then it gets bumped to a meeting and the committee can discuss it as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like we did with the
Which
legal
is
fees.
the way we did before. Yeah.
Yeah.
As Sarah's wisely says,
Okay.
as we did with the legal fees. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Are there any other MOUs that we believe we need to address? I'm curious personally about the Assabet River Bluff Preservation Grant. I understand that they're moving forward very rapidly on that. And I wonder if there's anything we need to say about that. There may not be, but I wonder if we could review that for just a minute.
My one question was whether we should be referencing the document of understanding that's between the town and the land trusts. On the other hand, I don't believe we've ever been provided with that document. So maybe it doesn't make sense for us to be referencing that.
Okay, Burton. I'm wondering, what I'm referencing is the challenge that Matt Johnson suggested at one of the many reviews of all of this, in which he said, I am concerned that we say that has to be for affordable housing. And that, you know, some memorandum of understanding that states specifically that it's for affordable housing and not just, I'm sorry, we are taking care of our daughter's cat. And his way of getting our attention is to scratch our furniture. So on occasion, I have to turn around and say, stop it. So it's not to you I'm saying it, is to this, this aggressive cat. Stop. No, don't do that. Oh my gosh, he's ruining the brain. Go. No. Oh yeah, don't meow at me. I'm sorry, guys, I apologize. Recovering. I can just hear Matt saying, I think the MOU ought to be very specific. Now, I don't know whether we feel that we should, could, ought to, and I just love to hear some discussion about that. And I see Linda's on, so.
I did just want to point out that the first condition does allocate 30% of that parcel for community housing purposes only.
Yeah.
Do you think that's sufficient?
Well,
Yep.
is the fact that in all the, I guess at town meeting, everything that's been shared about this does clearly show how the land's going to be separated. I know it's not actually in this document, but there are other documents that show that. Would that suffice? I was comfortable because of
to
that.
add- to add that to this MOU.
The
Oh,
only
maybe.
issue with referencing any sort of plan is those are not final plans still. So I would caution against referencing a final
Okay,
division of land because it
But-
hasn't been finalized.
so
The
we
only
can't
thing that-
even, I think it was, they were called, you know, lot A and B and everything. We can't even refer to,
Right, because those
that.
lines I think could still be changed. It's
Okay.
not the final version. I think the only thing that's definitely been finalized is that 70% of that parcel will be open space and 30% will be community housing, no matter how those lot lines end up being drawn in the end.
Yeah, that's
Just to, I don't think it's actually 30% is community housing. It's a smaller percentage. It's 30% of the value is going towards the housing piece. But in terms of acreage, I think it's 6 acres and 1 acre, I think were the numbers.
And Matt Johnson had one
Oh.
to be an acre and a quarter. He wanted to grab a little bit more land for some more affordable housing, but I don't think we can make those changes now, or can we? And do we need to cement that in some unambiguous way? And that's the reason I'm particularly.
we can't.
Well,
I
can
think we
speak?
should have the
Tom and then
principals here.
Tom and then Charles and then Nancy. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I'll defer to Charles first.
Oh, Charles.
Oh, I mean, at town meeting, actually, the statement was that the community housing parcel shall be in the name of the Concord Housing Development Corporation.
Right.
Excuse me. And their mission is to create affordable housing.
Absolutely. And Matt's hope, as I'm just expressing it, and his emphasis on the MOU. I'm sorry, this cat has just arrived an hour ago, and this is the reason for a certain amount of chaos in our little household. So I apologize again. And what Matt was hoping, obviously, was that there would be more than 5 affordable housing units, and that somehow some configuration could work out that would accommodate an even larger number. So do we need to say in our MOU, I'll posit this thought and then get all these wonderful comments that I can see hands raised to see whether we want to say minimally 5 affordable houses. Do we want to make that kind of statement in the memorandum of understanding in order to guide future direction? So let's go Charles and then Paul and then Tom and then Sarah.
Well, yeah, we could do that. And I mean, I'm sure that the plan is for 5. And the agreement with the, this, I don't know whether it's formally stated at town meeting, but I think that the idea was that there would be only 5 to please the neighbors. So three new ones.
Well beyond that.
I think that in the fundraising, it's not just the neighbors, it's the fundraising for natural resources land and for everything else. That statement, and I think at the select board meeting in advance of town meeting, and in which the collaborative forces came together, there was clearly an emphasis on 5 affordable houses. And I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement. Units, right. And that we find a way of perhaps cementing that in our agreement. Paul.
Yes, I find that first item number 1 a little ambiguous, and I think we may need to refine that and then add one. It wasn't clear to me because I read it too fast that was the funding level. It clearly is, but you could read it percentage of land, and so I think we need to make sure that that's funding. But I do think we need a separate one, which maybe states a target, based on what we just talked about, either the acreage or the number of housing units. But I'd call it a target.
I love that word, Paul. That's
because things could change. I'm not sure that makes sense, but so I think we need to clarify number 1 a little bit, that's funding, and add something that speaks to the acreage or the number of units
Thank
to be
you.
targeted.
Tom,
Thank you. So I guess I also read number one a little differently, and Paul, maybe I'm seeing this through your eyes now, but the way I would have clarified this, and I'm probably wrong, was the CPA funding shall go towards the acquisition of parcel of land, period. Uses include open space, approximately 70%, and community housing, approximately 30%. But I read those percentages as the uses on the parcel, not the allocation of funding. I don't know how you would, sort out on one parcel of land how much percentage goes to this or that. So
Well-
I think the money is to buy the land, right? So that's, I may be wrong.
So just on that piece, those percentages and how the value is done, the land trusts that are involved, that's exactly what they do, is calculate those kinds of percentages. And my understanding is that's sort of the basis of the MOU with the town, is that the division of how much was open space versus community housing was set at that for a specific reason. I believe probably tied to the fact that the land trusts, are the housing trust is contributing some money as well, and the land trusts are contributing some money, and they both have their purposes in their charters and what they can contribute money to, and then they calculate how that value gets allocated.
But we're not saying, just as a follow-up, we're not saying $700,000 to go to open space and $300,000 to go to community housing.
I think we are.
Yeah, well, then why would we just say it, then?
We were saying that, well, we could say that, but I think that the reason we're doing this is in part so that we can calculate how much we've spent in each category out of the fund, but of the CPA funding, which how much goes in each category. But I think that we are saying 700,000 is towards the preservation, 300,000 is towards housing.
I agree.
that was
Right.
my understanding as well. Yeah.
Maybe it would just be
Yeah.
best to change 70% to 700,000 and 30% to 300,000.
That would be, I think, prudent.
Yeah, I
Okay,
would be okay with that. Too.
okay, hold on, Nancy. Sarah?
I'd like to comment on the number of houses, because I thought that everybody had landed and we all voted at town meeting on the understanding that there would be 5 units. So it worries me if we're now saying it could be more.
I think, Sarah, that the reason I brought it up is because I know that there were some strong feelings on the select board, and the reference continuously was put to the memorandum of understanding. And did we wish to suggest that it might be possible on the existing plot that there could be more than 5 units of affordable housing? I don't think the neighbors would much care if it stayed that size and there were 6 units somehow,
I don't think we can assume that though, because there's small
can't.
cars and you just
Right.
don't know. So I really thought that it was presented in a way that there would be 5 units or no more than 5 units.
I'm in agreement with that. I just want to make sure we all are in agreement with that, and that we somehow make that clear in the memorandum of understanding. And Linda, you're going to weigh in on this for us?
Well, I'm going to attempt to. I do agree that I think it would be more clear if you designate the 700,000 for open space and the 300,000 as opposed to the percentages. And as a couple of you have already commented, this is for the acquisition of the land only. And there is a separate MOU, as you understand, between multiple parties that then specify other details. So I'm not sure you need to capture that here, and I'm not sure that was part of the application that you approved.
It was not, but it was brought up over and over again. So I just want to make sure that we're.
Sure. And I also hear the multiple references to the select board and Matt's comments. And I just want to assure everybody and remind everybody that just prior to town meeting, including Matt, there was unanimous agreement
Right.
to endorse this.
Okay,
So I think that's where we should all end up in our commentary.
thank you, Linda. I appreciate that very much. Sarah, does that make sense to you?
So are we going to, okay, so I think Linda said that we didn't actually vote on the number of houses then, so we
we're-
can't put it in.
No, so we're just voting on 700,000 and 300,000 at the present moment. John and then Burton.
Okay, yeah, got it.
John,
I was just going to say, I think that saying adding nothing is the wiser course. I
right,
think that's what Linda's recommending. And that means we're not standing on a number minimum, a number maximum. We're just saying nothing, but buy the land.
thank you, terrific. Burton,
Thank you. I'm going to agree with John. I think that the specifics in terms of the number of houses and the breakdown of the specific lots, while that was very instrumental in the discussion and supporting these, we never got the MOU, which if I could wave a magic wand, that MOU would be attached to this as an exhibit and every detail would be laid down. But that's not the way it would happen. I take solace in the fact that I think that if that deal were to be changed, and there was maybe suggestions that the select board would want to look at that MOU, that the combined forces of land conservation and housing in Concord would rise up and create an insurrection.
that is, we share that sentiment. I just wanted to make it 100% clear.
Yeah.
Nancy.
I just want to say what's been said is reflecting what my concerns were too. I feel very uncomfortable trying to rewrite the agreement.
I was
So-
suggesting, and just for the record, I
Less
was
is,
suggesting that we rewrite the record.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we took
well,
into account some fairly heartfelt feelings and made sure that we had reviewed our memorandum of understanding here and that everything was straight. So hooray.
yeah.
So Heather, with that small inundation, I think we can move forward on this one. Is there any other of our varied grants that we wish to add a memorandum of, to which we would wish to attach a more detailed memorandum of understanding as you look over the list? The only one I can think of, and I think it might be prudent, as I was working on all this afternoon and last evening, is the question of the what number is it? G, so it's not a number, the Junction Village Open Space Project. So much of that hinged on the development of Junction Village. And therefore, it seems to me it would not be imprudent to say that were Junction Village not to move forward in the coming fiscal year, that those funds would be restrained until, because I believe it was all in combination with the bulldozers that they were going to be able to borrow and all sorts of other things. Now, maybe they can get started on some of it, even without the bulldozers, but I didn't get the sense that they could, and that it was all kind of a packaged all together. What are other people's sensibilities, and do we need to be specific about that? Because if Junction Village, if they don't get their funding and it doesn't go forward.
Diana, I really like that idea for a couple of reasons. One of which is there may be, if Junction Village doesn't go forward, there may be momentum that people want to put a park there, which I would think is great. But the idea is that it should be built with the design consideration of Junction Village there. And also, I wouldn't want the town to sort of get tired of waiting around for Grantham Group or Junction Village to happen, start the work, and then Grantham cannot contribute the $50,000 in kind of earth moving or whatever the number was. So I think it really makes sense to say that the funding is contingent upon the groundbreaking of Junction Village and that work going hand in hand.
Because I think, thank you, Bert. I think the commitment originally was one that we made as a town. We said that as a town, when that goes in, we would attend to so much of the grounds around it, which were in some disarray, and that therefore that would be part of what we would do. And I don't know how many of you were deeply involved in this 5 years or so ago. But it was a complicated and detailed set of discussions. So that makes me feel more comfortable. How about the rest of you? And Burton and I feel more comfortable. I'm seeing a thumbs up.
I'm just questioning,
Okay.
so what kind of timing constraint, practically speaking, what might that put on that project? Because I don't know what the groundbreaking timing is.
I don't think we do know still. Linda, do you have any updated information on that?
Have the status report, hopefully in 2023.
But our grant has its own timing, right?
Right.
30 months.
The project has been delayed in closing their funding for the project, given the escalation of costs and so forth. So at this point, I think the earliest we're probably going to be looking at in terms of construction would be 23.
Well, that's still within our purview, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Paul, does that address your concern?
Yeah, so this theoretically, our project could start, in calendar year 23. Okay.
Exactly right. I mean, once they see that Grantham is actually going to break ground, then
Right.
they would begin. But I think the understanding we should put in writing that this money is contingent upon the groundbreaking and beginning construction of Grantham Village.
Well,
Because I know that they understood that was they were contingent on each other. John?
Oh, it's just a question, does the applicant understand, or do they have something they want to start?
Yeah.
Now or before, or just in the 6 months before? I mean, do they want some flexibility to start before the formal groundbreaking? I have no idea.
My understanding was they were working in symbiosis, but I could be over imagining. Nancy, what do you think?
I was just wondering if their whole project is dead, if Grantham is delayed, or if it doesn't start on time, they could be independently making progress on the park pieces. As I recall, the amount Grantham was going to contribute was significant, but not stunning. I don't remember the exact amount. It didn't seem like it was going to kill the project.
Not at all, but the real costs are around getting the trees and being able to buy the
Right.
materials that they need. But
Right.
to clear all that land, to get trails established and everything else requires them not having to spend money to bring in bulldozers and everything else to clear the land. So what Grantham was going to provide is heavy
Yeah.
equipment to clear
No,
things,
I know.
get it going. So I
Do you remember what the value was? Do you remember what the value was? I didn't
it was
think
30
it
or
was that
50,000.
huge.
I have it
Now,
right here in front of me, but
I think it's 50,000.
it was either 30
Okay.
or 50, and here it is. Hold on just a minute.
I didn't think it was that much.
25,000.
Yeah, that's more in the
Yeah.
range that I was thinking.
Yeah.
So
25,000, and so
so I'm
I think, do we need to write a note to the applicant? Is that what we're all saying? Just reminding them that not until the Grantham project begins will our grant money be available?
well, do they have, how much was their total grant this year? Not that much either, right? It
Well,
was, I'm sorry, I don't have all my
And
documents with
of
me.
course not, hon. We ended up giving them quite a bit of money, actually.
300,000, I believe.
No, 250,000, $125,000
So,
open space and $112,142 for recreational space.
oh,
And,
that's right, it was split.
and
So
so
maybe they could,
it's $250,000.
so maybe the $25,000 isn't a killer and doesn't hinge really on Grantham starting first. I mean, it's a cost savings, definitely, because they were contributing that.
Consider.
I'm just,
If Grantham's
just-
not successful in getting this project
Yeah.
going in the next year, I think its likelihood
Yeah.
of never happening increases quite a bit. And at that point, if it doesn't happen, I think we'd probably want to start with a clean slate. It may be that the town-
Redo.
yeah, well, the town may want to use the full, may put in, for example, a planned residential development
Yeah.
instead of assisted living, and then want to use the whole parcel or
Yeah.
something.
Right.
Right.
Because parameters of what would be open space at that point could be quite changed.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
And-
shouldn't say the town because it's not town land. right?
Yeah, if the whole project.
It's the state land, I think,
It's the community housing trust land or.
right? So Paul,
Yeah, I think what Bert just mentioned, that the possibility of a rethink it makes some sense. I don't remember in our discussion sort of the close link between the Grantham development and the open space development, other than the 25,000. There wasn't a codependency other than the money. But I think to Bert's, I mean, I don't remember that being part of the criteria, but I think to Bert's point,
No.
if the project doesn't go through, there may be a different project, and it might be worth just waiting to see. So I mean, on that basis, I'd be willing to put that in there, but
okay.
I don't remember that being a
But
hardwired.
In my imagination, they were co-joined. And that they understood that because it was hard for them to proceed without the heavy equipment, clearing ways and making it possible. But that may just have been my imagination, and that may not have been appropriate, Nancy.
But I'm sorry, they have a lot more money that they could use. They could rearrange the categories, for instance, and pay for the $25,000. That's a first step.
Mhm.
I feel uncomfortable doing this at this late stage without having the advocate for the project. And after it's been approved at town meeting, I feel a little uncomfortable about that.
Okay, I hear a couple of points of view. Perhaps we need to write Carlene, who has been the person who's really been so enthusiastic and orchestrated this with such conviction and such excitement. Maybe we need to contact her, ask her to come back and talk with us at the next meeth, and just speak to to her understandings and our understandings and see where we are. Nancy, your hand is still up. That's not up.
I think that's good.
Okay.
No, I
Yeah,
think that's
I can
good.
send Carlene and Marcia an email
That would be
about this
great.
proposed condition. And then we can hold off on approving this MOU until your June meeting.
Right.
And hopefully have a response from them by then. And if they want to discuss it, they can attend the June meeting.
That's terrific. And the June meeting is the 21st of June is what I have on my calendar. Is that work? Does that seem right in everybody else's? Okay. Terrific. Heather, thank you. I would not want to alarm them, but I do.
Wow.
There needs to be a kind of a collective understanding, because at least all along, I thought they were kind of symbiotic, that they worked hand in glove. So Linda Escobedo, can you give us any sense for whether, do we have any sense for the prognosis, the possible, whether this Grantham group is likely to be able to fund their adventure?
Based on a recent status conference I know that they had with Marcia and Liz and some others, they're on track.
Okay.
They've gotten additional funding from the state, so they're just trying to fill in the gap here. And so we're proceeding as though it's going to be on track, the project.
Terrific. Thank you, Linda. So that's terrific. But obviously I'm worrying about nothing, because if it goes forward, all of this will be just jolly good. Are there any other projects where we think a particular statement on our part in terms of defining the projects as it goes forward is important? I would add that the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, the Assabet River pedestrian bridge, I was interested to hear Elizabeth Hughes say several times in other settings, not in ours, that there was going to be a lot more money being asked of the CPC if this is accepted to support the kind of work they wish to do. So this is really just the first of what they anticipate as multiple grants. Did everyone else understand that when we were moving forward? Sarah, you did?
I would clarify, it's not the first. This is our second, right?
Right.
We've already funded it.
Have we funded the bridge?
I think we funded the original design work and then this.
Yeah,
is
it's in this report.
Thank you. I guess I knew that. Carlene is here. Can you believe it? As if by magic, she has materialized. Hi, Carlene. If you're there, we'd love to talk with you about something.
Sorry, I'm just trying to push the right buttons. Yes, I'm in Panama with my students. There they are. Wave, everybody.
Oh my.
And so it's a little funny that I'm attending a meeting in Concord from Panama City, but here I am. So yes, I'm happy to answer.
But Carlene, people have been in Hawaii and Paris and Spain to attend this meeting. Although I think you're now the farthest flung. So welcome.
So yes, tell me.
So Carlene, our question for you is that were Grantham Group not to come through and that whole project stopped, did you imagine in any way going forward with your project, or would we need to wait and see how the land was going to be used?
Did you just say that the Grantham Group project is canceled? Is that what you just said?
No. I said if that wonderful two-letter word, which has such
Okay.
consequence,
I didn't hear that.
if that project were for some reason not to be forthcoming, although we believe it will be, did you imagine going forward with your project?
No, what we imagined was that we would wait to see what the next project was, and that we would deliver our fully developed, evolved plan to the next project leader, with the hopes that they would just adopt, because all the hard work will be done. The CR will be created, which would have needed to be created anyway. The only thing that might be, in conflict with, we think a future developer would be the meadow, but the idea that all of this work has been done and all of this stuff has been designed, we think would just be handed over to the next project owner, and hopefully they would just sort of take what our guidance is. And that's been the sort of that's been the thought all along with Liz, with Marcia, with Delia, and with us.
Terrific. That is fantastic. Are there any other questions for Carlene? Nancy?
Yeah, I wanted to ask her, do you need to spend any money before we find out about the Grantham?
No, it's all volunteer based. The money that the first money we'll spend is invasive removal. And of course, we want to get to that right away because it'll take so long and to get that stuff going. And then the other thing that we wanted to do was to start planting some of those mature trees, because we want them to start growing in place. And so those were the things that we were going to do right off the bat, but we have to know what the status of the land is before we do that. So we won't spend a cent before that's locked down.
Thank you, because that was my sense too, was that they're kind of symbiotic. They were working together, kind of in tandem. Terrific. Other questions that we might wish to pose to Carlene. Nancy, you had your hand up. Is it back down? No.
Yes, it's back down.
Down. Heather.
So Carlene, the basis of these questions is they were discussing putting in a condition in the MOU requiring that the Junction Village project break ground before your funding is contingent on the groundbreaking and start of construction, but perhaps we word the condition that the funding is contingent on that project being approved at the state level.
Yes, Heather, it would be so much better if it weren't breaking ground, because some of that stuff, like the invasives removal, would likely happen prior to breaking ground, but not until the project is approved and we know for sure that project is going forward. So yes, I think your second phrase was the better one than breaking ground, if that's okay.
That's terrific, Carlene. Thank you so much.
My
And-
pleasure.
And if I don't hear any more questions, go back and enjoy Paraguay. Oh my gosh.
Panama.
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 Panama, wherever you are. It's a P word. What can I say? Panama.
Thank you so much. And again, if you need me again, I'm here, so I'll be happy to sign in.
No, we're all set. And what are you doing in Panama quickly?
I am a journalism professor and I am teaching 18 students how to function as a traveling press corps. So we're all over the country reporting.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, take care of yourself.
Mhm.
I want to report when you get back.
I'll
Okay.
get one. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Wow, who knew? She can work for the new Concord Bridge. The new newspaper. Go, Carla.
Yeah.
We have to be sure to grab her for that undertaking. Okay, fantastic. Are there any other potential MOUs that we can see? Okay.
Good.
Going forward, then we can put a line through that agenda item.
Is everyone okay with
Geez.
the amendments, and as discussed, I can draft and send
That would be grand.
grant agreements and MOUs as amended tonight?
Yes.
Okay,
And just to complete the thought on that one that we were discussing with Carlene, that the funding would be contingent upon the project receiving final state approval.
Right.
Okay.
yes.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I mean, that's a very accurate way of putting it. Thank you, Burton. The 2022 Community Preservation Plan update.
Just, can we just get a motion to approve?
Yes. May somebody please move to approve the.
I'll make a motion that we approve all of the MOUs with the amendments as discussed this evening.
And grant agreements?
And
And grant agreements, right? Because
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And Nancy,
Aye.
Tom,
I,
Paul,
Aye.
Charles,
Aye.
John,
yes,
Burton,
yes.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I as well. So it is unanimous and we do so declare. Okay. Thank you, Heather, so much. The 2022 Community Preservation Plan updates. Heather, you want to share a screen?
So Linda did point out some changes that need to be made on page 11. Some of these numbers are older and need to be updated. So I did email Liz Russ today. So I will have updated numbers to put in there.
Fantastic. Has everybody had a chance to review this document? Or to look at it pretty closely?
Yep.
It's enormously helpful. At least I found it as a highly instructive document.
I agree.
So with those changes, Heather, that Linda counseled in an email to you, do we need to vote this? Oh wait, Paul, you have a question.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of questions. So I think it's been my observation that the applications either come from a group like 110 Walden, or they come through the town from a town department. Only occasionally have I seen individuals put forward an application. I'd like to sort of somewhere in here emphasize that that's a possibility. Of course, in that process, the individual probably needs to get a town department on board to manage the project.
Right.
But I'm just thinking, I know a number of people I've been talking to, as they become aware of the CPA, they said, gee, there are a couple of projects on this town land or this space or this field that I'd like to propose as an individual. How do I do that? And it's not clear in here how an individual starts that process. Do they liaise with a department head, or do they put through the application, then get support from a department head? So that's not clear in here. And I think I'd like to
or through a town committee, Paul.
Yeah, town committee or just some
There
town.
there are many entrees to this, aren't there? I mean, one of the things about the White Pond, if we all remember that one, the White Pond project was that there was no supporting liaison with either a town committee or with, although there was the White Pond Advisory Committee, but nothing with the town itself, who become in many ways the banker of our money and therefore the distributor of the funds. So there needs to be a town liaison each time.
Yeah.
With what's
So my point is just maybe to make this a little clear to individuals in town that they can bring ideas forward and how to do that.
and how to do that.
Does that make sense?
Heather, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I can add a few sentences in somewhere.
Well,
Under-
it's kind of the process. So it may be either in the application
Yes, that's
that
where it goes.
individuals with town support or individuals with the committee support or something like that can bring those forward, sort of in the process.
Right, and we have had that in the past, like last year, Melissa Southfield brought forward an application in conjunction with the town manager's office to restore the flagpole at Emerson Field. So we have had individuals come forward and partner with the town before. But I can definitely add something in here. I'll have to
I
think
think-
about where it would best
I mean,
fit.
I think it goes in the application process somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's under page 35 under the application process, I thought. I was going to add that, I mean, Phil Posner, for instance, in terms of the reformatory branch trail, it was often suggested to him by Carmen Reese and by others that he come to us for additional funding if there would like to be, you know, some sort of uninvasive study undertaken. We would need legal advice on that, given the town vote to support 47, but not to support 46. So it would be, you know, require our careful moving forward and planning, but
So Heather, I think they're right up front, either in one or two or between those, sort of just opening up who can apply and how to do that.
under first-time applicants, all
Yeah.
applicants are advised to, and maybe under number 2, all applicants are advised to make sure that they are that they have a clear liaison with town committees and or town.
Well, an applicant only needs to partner with the town if their project is on town land.
Yeah, that's the reason I said and or.
Yeah,
Um,
I can fiddle with some wording and figure it
Okay.
out. We don't have to approve this tonight. I can, I can work
Okay.
on that and put it on your June agenda for final
Thank you.
approval.
Thank you very, very much.
And Diana had one other comment, which I mentioned several meetings ago, I think. In the criteria for evaluation, there are projects that almost require community outreach, community support. It's probably not all projects, but the Assabet Bluff project is an example. There are other projects, and Emerson Field, it turns out the abutters took the exception that they were never consulted. So I don't know how to put that in, but in a criteria, something to the effect that if a project involves adjacent property owners or abutters, that some consultation effort should be documented.
Bob, I think you've made a critical point, and I think one of the things we all learned this year, and no matter how hard some committees try to reach out to neighbors in an accommodating way, and Burton's eyebrows just went up and down. That anything we can do to urge the town planners to make certain, and I think of the Concord Recreation Department grant that we've just given, that all efforts to reach out, and not just necessarily to the abutters, but the near abutters and the neighborhoods that are affected is not unimportant. And I think it wins tremendous goodwill. Of course, there's going to be somebody who complains, But if you've got 80% of the people saying, thank you, this will be just fine with us, then at least you've made the effort.
So either in the selection criteria or in the application itself, something akin to an outreach plan. With an application, I'd like to see an outreach plan for if it's appropriate for the project.
I think it's an important idea, actually. How does everybody else feel about that? I know how I feel, but that doesn't mean, what are other people's reactions to that?
I think it's a good idea.
Sounds good.
I might not call it a plan, depending on the scale. It might just be a strategy or a commitment. I'm not envisioning pages and pages,
Well, maybe a subtext.
depending on the scale.
Yeah, what has been
Yeah.
your collaborative effort with abutters and a neighborhood and the adjoining neighborhood for your plan?
Yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah.
it would be to the proponent's advantage.
Right.
I'll add something to both the general selection criteria and the application
That's
about
fantastic.
that. One thing to note, if we put off, generally I send out like a press release that the application's been posted on the website, it's available, and it has all these dates of because your next meeting in June is also that first public informational meeting. So it'd be best if the application has been posted on the website and the press release has gone out so that people will attend that public informational meeting in June. So I don't know if you just want to authorize me to draft those changes and Diane to look them over and okay it so that I can still post the application and send out that press release before the June meeting, and then you guys can finalize the plan at your June meeting.
Does that make sense to
Makes
everybody?
sense.
I think that Heather and
does.
I have a sense of the meeting, so I think we can look at that wording and make certain it doesn't either overstate it or understate it. Is that okay? Thank you. Terrific. Okay, project status reports. Do we have any, Heather? I did not see any.
Yes, they're all on the website.
Except the Right Tavern. So are there more? I missed if there are.
Yes, they're all on the website. Let me
Okay.
screen share in a second. So they're all listed here.
But those are all new?
They were on the website at your last meeting. We
Yeah,
didn't really get to them on the agenda. And I don't know if everyone has had plenty of time now to review them and has any questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that these were new. And that we were, I mean, that's something that's just skipped my mind. So I have not read all of them. I've read 4 of them, but not the rest because I thought these were just old status reports. So has anybody else read them? Tom?
Well, I was gonna, I had given them a kind of overview, and I thought they were very good, but I thought it might be helpful to the committee if, Heather, do you have specific projects that are presenting questions that you need help with?
None that jumped out to me.
Yeah.
We are missing 2. One was never submitted for the flagpole. I'm still trying to track that one down. And then the one for 110 Walden, the Timothy Wheeler house. She has been having some health issues. So she has promised to get it to me by the end of the month. And I told her to just get it to me whenever. So
But generally, other than those 2, teams are keeping their projects generally on track with regard to the expectations that were set forth.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Charles?
Well, I have an update on the Commonwealth Avenue project, just for your information. In fact, we sent out a RFP to anyone who wished to build the house. We got one response from Habitat, and we have now contracted with Habitat to build that new house.
Right.
There ran into a, I mean, the status report was sent before this, but they ran into an odd situation that
Sure
the
did.
house, what happened is that the house, the piece of land that we were given as a result of the Dro purchase, we have sort of attached to the next property of the adjoining house. So it's sort of like one, we consider that, we in the housing authority consider that one piece of land. And the plan was to overlap somewhat the division between these two pieces of land. The state regards the two pieces separately because of their origins. So in order to allow that house to overlap into the other property would have required a home rule petition.
Right.
But you know how long home rule petitions take? They take years.
4 years from now, we might have a chance of getting this property, right?
So
There is
so
not.
what we decided to do was to, what they decided was they're going to narrow down the size of the house a little bit. The Habitat is working to create a new plan, which will be entirely within the parcel in which, that we had been donated.
Charles, so as I recall, on the planning board, that came through as a 2-unit PRD with it that would be able to utilize the existing septic hookup for the residents that's on there. Can that part remain and that part of the plan, or?
Well, Burton, I was thinking, I was asking myself the same question. I'm not sure. I think they have to work it out. I think that this new design, they're going to have to go through the board, planning, the Board of Appeals again, and sort that out, in terms of how to deal with the sewer hookup. So it's a little of a puzzle.
I mean, I'm sure if it was just zoning issues, that approval would be pretty forthcoming. I think the big question is that sewer hookup.
Perfect.
Anyway.
Yeah.
My understanding from Stefan Bader is that if we had approval from 3 committees in town, the planning board, the ZBA, the NRC, and one other, that we could proceed without a home rule petition. Is that now old news rather than present news?
Oh, I didn't hear that one. Now that's interesting. I guess it's an ongoing story.
I think it's a fascinating psychodrama here. Sarah and then John.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you're
Yes,
fine.
great, thank you. I wanted to understand, we referenced earlier on in the meeting today that CPC funding should be spent within 30 months of being awarded at town meeting, but we have quite a few old projects which have clearly gone over 30 months. So is that just a guideline, or is that something we should be paying attention to?
I would defer to Heather for that.
It's a guideline.
Okay.
And so when a project is beyond the 30 months or approaching it, when I send out the project status report requests, I make note of that and ask them to include, a more detailed timeline in their report of when they're going to spend the money.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Sarah?
It does, yes. Yes, I'm quite comfortable with continuing to, pay out for these projects. I just wanted to understand whether it was, something we need to remember.
Keep in our brain. John, and then Paul.
Yeah, Heather, I may have gotten confused. The open projects list, I have 2 questions from that list, but are they likely to be in the reports? Is the library in the report?
Yes, there's a library report.
Okay, well, that'll answer my question. And then is the Minuteman Arc in the report?
Yes.
All right, then I'll be fine. We'll go read them.
Thank you very much. Do you see those now, John, in that list?
Yeah, it's
Minuteman Arc project.
it's been moving up and down, but I know how to get it after we finish the meeting.
Terrific. Thank you. Paul.
I just want to follow up on Sarah's question about the 30-month. issue. Has it ever been the case where we reabsorb the money and ask the applicant to resubmit to be competitive with the other applications? Is that something we've never considered? Because some of these are getting a bit aged where they haven't spent anything in 2 years, maybe for very good reasons, but is this an open-ended process or?
Since I've been here, we've not done that. We have discussed kind of threatening applicants if we haven't received a project status update from them, explaining why they have not started their project or spent their money or given us a timeline of when that will be done. We have kind of threatened them that we're going to close the project account and you'll no longer have access to that funding. And that generally takes care of that issue. So we haven't had that problem in the past. Generally, applicants are responsive and explain, their situation.
I think during COVID as well, there's been a more flexible approach to the finishing of projects and the attention to projects, Paul. And that may be something that in the fall, the committee needs to, to review in a very special and specific way vis-a-vis each project. I remember doing that in the fall, many falls actually, and looking to see where we were and how that was, how we were doing, how we were faring. Linda Escobedo, you're back there. I hope. I wanted to ask you a question about the housing that we were just discussing, the Commonwealth Avenue housing. Is my understanding from Stefan Bader correct?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
That's the first, yeah.
Okay, well, that came up at a meeting on Monday. And today's Tuesday. It came up yesterday at a meeting, a town government committee meeting for the league, in which Stefan explained in its entirety the complexity of that Commonwealth Avenue, housing situation. So I believe there is an alternative, and Charles, I don't know whether, I don't know whether it's being explored or whether that's no longer the case, but I'm sure we will find out before the next meeting. And if you could do your due diligence and dig around and see what you can find, it would be a great help.
Okay, I'll do that.
We all will. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Shall we move on? Is everybody comfortable moving on to the next item? I am very sad to say that Tom Kearns has decided not to continue next year. And at least from my perspective, this is a dreadful piece of news, bordering on grim. Tom's expertise, history, knowledge, maturity, and just kind of generally calm, deliberative approach to things is invaluable. And Tom, I'm very sad to hear that. I'm sure there's a good reason. I can't think of one, but I'm sure there's a good reason.
Well, Diane, thank you. So maybe this is a moment where I can just thank everybody. It's been a great experience. It exceeded any expectation I could have had, and I've learned so much and formed collegial relationships with all of you, which has been wonderful. I spend many evenings in front of regulatory groups across Massachusetts. And so as we stumble through this phase of COVID, and I'm finding myself more and more in evening meetings all around the state and all around New England. And so I'm trying to just find that balance. And this has been wonderful. 4 years went so quickly. And it's been just a great kind of learning and growth experience for me. And I'm hoping we stay in touch. And I'm right in Monument Square, so you can stop by anytime. But yeah, it's been such a pleasure and an honor. And yeah, I'd love to continue someday, who knows? Thank you. But it's also nice to have new voices at the table and new leadership, and that's always very exciting for me to see how people come into these groups and help to evolve the groups in really positive ways. So I'm very optimistic. So thank you.
Well, we'll take your optimism and go forward with a small tear dribbling down our cheek. And Peter is not here tonight, and he is officially the clerk of this committee. So I'm not quite sure how we proceed to the next part of this, which is committee membership and office elections. Would anybody like to suggest how we might do this?
I had thought that Peter as the vice chair
That's what I thought,
and
John.
and a select board appointee would be the
Next chair, right?
parent next chair.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it was a year or so ago when he asked to defer for a year.
Yeah.
And so I thought he was interested this year, but I haven't spoken to him recently.
Well, I didn't ask him because I mentioned it at the last meeting. Said, congratulations, Peter, here comes the baton. And I didn't hear anything to the contrary. So I trust he will be right there to pick it up. We're going to need then a vice chair and a treasurer. So may I hear nominations for a vice chair?
Oh.
Well, don't all nominate at once here.
I'd like to nominate Bert Flint.
So, well, complicating to that, thank you. So I am no longer I will no longer be the chair of the planning board after next week. So I will not be, even though for some reason, apparently my term on this board extends. It doesn't make sense for me to, somebody from the planning board should be the representative. Now I will say I have put in a green card or a volunteer card to consider staying on as a select board appointee if there's a spot that opens up. But that needs to be forwarded obviously by the select board.
Can
Okay,
we,
so Tom's select board position is now open.
that's right.
Well, I really hope that works out. That would be delightful.
Can we
Well,
do
I
it
did everything I could to push you out, Tom. That was all my grand scheme.
I
Can
hope
we-
Linda's
we-
listening.
Yeah.
So maybe I
Can we-
could defer my nomination.
She's listening and she's smiling.
Yay. So can we vote on this appointment or this nomination contingent upon the approval of the select board to extending Burton's role and being a select board appointee? Do I hear a second for that nominee? Thank you. Okay, Nancy, I think it's okay. I mean, if he doesn't, you don't.
Is
think-
that,
I'm sorry?
I'm just wondering, Linda would have, should we do we make recommendations to the select board for when filling positions? It's a more general question. Is that a common thing to do?
I think the town manager makes the recommendations.
Recommendations?
Well, when
Yeah.
I was chair, I made some recommendations. We had 2 vacancies and I forwarded some names that I had heard around and about the town.
To the select board
I'm not sure who I
or
talked.
to us?
I
Yeah.
might talk to.
Actually, I was involved with that as the liaison at the time, I believe.
So what is the proper protocol?
So generally, once we know there's a vacancy, the town manager's office knows there's a vacancy. They will, if there are any volunteer cards available, they will send them to the chair and to the select board liaison. And then in terms of how it gets played out from there, it differs from committee to committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then I don't want to do anything that is absolutely contrary to appropriate protocol. I mean, I just, I thought there aren't many, I mean, I don't know that there are a lot of green cards clamoring to join the CPC, but I could be wrong. And there could be 20 of them out there.
Oh, I think there are.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm aware of 2 as of this moment.
Wow. Okay. Well, why don't we
Yeah.
put this off until Linda and I've had a chance to confer. And she and I can look at the names and see what names we might bring to the committee for consideration in the June 21st meeting. Does that seem the appropriate protocol, and then the election of officers?
Speaking personally, I think that would feel better than
Yes.
putting my thumb on any scales. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to just put off any officer elections until the June 21st meeting? And perhaps Diane just continues to serve as chair until we have voted for officers.
Right, and until we know that Peter's really, with us.
Right.
Yeah. Also good.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, do you want a motion?
Go ahead.
No, I can just put it on the next agenda.
Just do it. You can just do it. All right.
So thank you,
Even
Paul,
better.
for your nomination. Thank you, Burton, for your grace in saying let's wait. Thank you, John, for your wisdom always and sense of history. And so we will go forward. Yes, Tom.
And Diane, as I trail off into the sunset here, I would just like to say, bravo, what a wonderful job you've done over this past year as chair.
Oh, yeah.
Really super job. It has not been easy. It's been a challenging year, and you've done just an exemplary job. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Second.
Here, here.
It's just
You've done,
this
you've
committee.
done so well, we're going to keep you longer.
Right, John. Can we talk in the other room? Yeah, Sarah.
May I just ask, I mean, I obviously know what the chair does. I assume the vice president or the vice chair, whatever it is, will step in if needed, if the chair's not available. But what does the clerk do then? Do they manage this sort of election if they're not taking minutes, because that's, I believe, Heather?
Right.
What does the clerk do?
They sign the minutes,
Oh, okay.
which we haven't really done in COVID. So
Okay. Thank
Do
you.
the chair and vice chair.
make sure you read the
And
minutes.
there's a treasurer as well. You said it just.
Yes, Nancy is our treasurer.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Great job she's done. I mean, a very
Yeah.
conscientious and thoughtful she's done
Yeah.
that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Does anybody know whether the two, the chair and the vice chair have to be select board appointees? Because the other appointees are contingent upon membership in a particular committee and our liaisons to the committee?
Yeah, we have this discussion every year. I don't think it's a requirement that the chair or the vice chair are select board appointees. That's just generally how it has worked out, because everyone else sits on another committee and has other commitments and other meetings to attend as well. But I don't believe it's a requirement.
Okay, thank you. That's a clarifying and clarifying and
I
helpful.
think that gives us more flexibility.
Yep. I agree.
Diane, before the June meeting, did you want to have a conversation with Peter about chair, or do you want me to email him?
How would you like to handle it, Heather?
It's up to you.
If you'd email him and give him my email address, and then he can talk with me through email, and then we could talk on the phone.
Okay.
Diane, I would suggest you have a conversation, because I remember doing the same with you and Peter
Right,
when I was chair and we were exploring who would be next.
right. Well, I would be happy to. I don't have that information, so I can't talk to him. Tom was wonderful about talking with me.
Okay, and I'll just send you Peter's email.
Okay, fantastic. And then I'll send it to him and give him my telephone number and hope he will then connect. Thank you, Heather. Other business, the approval of the minutes for April 26, 2022. I trust we've all read them. Do I hear any corrections to the minutes? I saw none. All those in favor of, may I hear a motion to accept the minutes, please?
So moved,
Thank you, Burton.
as written,
As
as written.
Sarah? Yes?
Aye.
Aye. Nancy?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
John?
Yes,
Tom?
Aye.
Burton?
Yes.
Aye, and I do as well. And Heather, I get the last word, and it's under, we've got Melissa here, and we'll see if she has a public comment. But before she does, I just want to say that we couldn't do this without you. Your knowledge, your calm, your way of landing on our doorsteps with materials, not get it, but oh, I'll bring it by. I mean, you know, this is like, it reminds me of doctors, you know, who used to make house calls. I was explaining to my husband why I care about you so much. And I said, she's kind of like the old fashioned doctor who makes house calls. You know, it doesn't happen anymore. I mean, you know, she is so supportive and takes such good initiatives. And when you have to do something that has public consequence, she's right there helping you to do it well and wisely. You really are in every way the chair of this committee, Heather, and all the rest of us tumble into place, trying to do things as well as you do them. And your children are very lucky to have you as a mom. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
I'll
Absolutely.
miss everyone.
we'll miss you more.
Well, you won't be far away.
No.
No, I'm just in Woburn. I'll probably bring the girls by to the office, you know, every once in a while. So
Is there a replacement, Heather?
I believe
No.
it's being worked on,
Okay.
but I haven't received an update since last week. So
Okay. Melissa, do you have a public comment?
No, my public comment would be just, I share your feelings about Heather. She knows very well that on behalf of the Historical Commission, we are bereft without.
Yeah. We are too. we share your,
Battle Road Scenic Byway too.
yeah, we share your bereavement, I do. Linda Escobedo, do you have a comment? Linda? Oh,
Yes, I do. Yeah, Heather indeed is going to be missed. I hope all of you read the select board narrative in terms of their recommendation at town meeting, where I sang the praises of all of you in terms of the incredible work you did this year with very difficult issues. And I made a point of commending all of you for the work that you had done in that narrative. So I hope the whole town read it, actually.
Yeah.
And Tom, you're
Thank
going
you.
to be missed indeed.
Thank you so much, Linda, for all your support right from the beginning.
you've been just amazing. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
No.
Yes.
I love you. You're amazing. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you. And second. And Sarah, yes.
Yes,
Anthony,
Aye.
aye. And Paul,
Yes,
and
yes.
Charles,
Aye.
and John,
Yes, yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Burton, and so do I. And have a wonderful early spring, and we'll see you all in June, or most of you. Tom.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Tom.
bye, everyone.
thank you. Bye.
Good
Take
night,
care, Heather.
everyone. Great job.